So my name is Kristen van Ginhoven. I'm a visiting lecturer in theater here at Williams College for the spring 2016 semester, and I'm also the director of tonight's play. And I would like to introduce you to... Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to introduce you to the playwright of Waxworks, Trina Davies. Why don't you and I sit here, and then as the actors get out of their costumes and get into their street clothes, they'll be joining us. Not all of them are able to join us, but those of them that can will come out when they can. So just to give a little backstory, in case you haven't read the program, my other day job is being the artistic director of WHAM Theatre, which is a professional theatre company here in the Berkshires. And WHAM our vision is to create opportunity for women and girls, and we do that through our mission of theatre as philanthropy. And 2 years ago, in 2014, we did a reading of Waxworks as part of our Fresh Takes play reading series. And we were very excited about the opportunity when I was asked to direct a play at Williams College to do the first ever production here at the college. So you are only the second audience ever to see this play. So well done to you for coming out tonight. So I'd like to start, Trina, by asking you to tell us a little bit about the genesis of the show and what it's been like to see it finally come to life.
Sure. Well, again, some of that is in the playwright's notes that you have there, but this started a long time ago for me, about 10 years ago, on a chance visit I had to a very bad Waxworks in Victoria, BC. I had a little time on my hands. I had never been to one. I had never ever had a desire to go to one. But I went, and it was a Louis Tussaud, not a Madame Tussaud. There was a rift in the family in the 1960s, and a cousin went off and did some of his own, not very well, which is the one I saw. But what captured my attention was that down in the Cavern of Criminals, there was a little tableau of Madame Tussaud in her black bonnet and dress, holding a cast, and it said that Madame Tussaud was forced to cast the heads of people she had known from Versailles. I just couldn't wrap my head around that. How could anyone do that? What would that experience be like? And was it actually true? Or was it just something that had been put into this salon? So I started researching, and I gathered every book I could. There's quite a few books that have been written. The only one I don't personally own is her biography that she wrote with a writer in around 1836, 1838. And almost all the books from that time period forward, though, were based on her account that she gave to her biographer. Since about 2000, people have started to question that original story and how much of it she may have embellished, because she was a master at marketing. She really changed the world. She created a kind of entertainment brand that had never existed before. It was just, that's where it came from. And since that time, I wrote the first draft about 2007. This is the longest development process for a play I've ever had. And I've had several workshops in Canada, a number of them public readings with audiences, but I've never seen it fully staged. And as you can see or imagine what the challenge is that Kristen took on in trying to take it from paper to the three-dimensional world that you just experienced tonight. That was what I was waiting to experience as well. And I arrived a week ago, and since that time, these incredible actors and crew have already dealt with a scene deletion and a bunch of changes and some small line changes, and I have a list of things that I want to address based on what I've seen here.
Omar Gouda, Dr. Kirchhoff. You could tell he was wearing a wig. Omar, we were introducing Trina and hearing the genesis of the project. Could you speak a little bit about what it's been like to work on a new play and develop a character for the first time? Paige Petterkin, our Marie.
Okay. Oh. I guess I'm feeling like I should have taken more time to get out of costume to think about this. But I suppose my character in particular, Dr. Philippe Curtius, proprietor of the Salon of Wax. From the dramaturgical information I was given by the lovely Russell Macklin, who's right there in the audience, there apparently wasn't that much information about what he actually said. There was information about what he did. He was formerly like a doctor in Switzerland who was commissioned by the royal family to come to France, and that's where he set up his wax artistry business. So I mostly had Trina's script to go on.
And on the first day of rehearsal, Omar said, "I'm so excited because I'm the first person who will ever play this role."
That is true. So when this goes to Broadway, it'll say original cast at Williams College, Omar Gouda as Philippe Curtius, which will be great. I suppose maybe perhaps one of the greatest challenges for me was there's not really a video I can watch about somebody who's done this before. So when Trina joined our process last week, I had the chance to directly ask her, how should I say this? Because I don't know. You've seen the choices that were made today.
Harriet Weldon, Princess de Lamballe. Paige, we're asking what it was like for the opportunity to create the character for the first time and be in a new play process, and you, of course, had to take on so much. So if you could share some of your thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for staying. So it was difficult. I mean, Omar sort of articulated a lot of what I was feeling. That I didn't have a video. I only had, visual research to go on from the designers and whatnot. And what was interesting for me about Marie was that, in my head, she was what most of us know, her to be, which is Madame Tussaud, which is, in New York City and Los Angeles, and her spaces and her figures. And it was really wonderful to get to, speak with Trina about making her a real person and, getting to see what she was like before she was this, this historical figure. So it was really wonderful.
Can you share some of the challenges of being in a new play, putting together a play with so many different layers in the time that we had, while balancing a really ambitious load as students here at Williams College? Harriet.
Yeah, it was, so this is my first production with the theater department, so I'm a freshman. It was just a lot about kind of being really in this space when you're here and not really worrying about what's going on outside, because we're taking all this time to create a new world, essentially, so you really can't let yourself be distracted by the essay you've got to write that's due tomorrow type of thing. So just kind of staying in the space when we're here, I'd say.
Thank you, Harriet. Harold Thur, Robespierre. And Jenny, our fabulous stage manager. Jenny came in 2 days before we started rehearsal and was like, what have I gotten myself into? With all the different things we had going on. Harold, we're talking about being the first people to take on playing these roles, and we're sharing some of the challenges and successes and the experience of doing that while balancing a school load as students. If you'd like to share some thoughts.
Oh, God. Well, I think when you're doing a new show that has never really been performed for an audience before, there's a huge responsibility to it. There's nobody else that has done it before you, so you're kind of crafting your own path without any real reference to what other people have done. So that's to me significant. In terms of balancing course load, I don't know, it's tough. But when you enjoy doing stuff like this, it is really insignificant in the long run. So that's, I guess, my 2 cents.
Great. Jenny, do we know if there are other people who are joining us? Okay, we'll wait as they're getting in. Do we have any designers who are still in the room? Is Deb here?
I think Deb's getting people out of costume.
Deb is getting people out of costume. Okay. Trina, so seeing the play finally in production, what do you think of as next steps? Because for the people in the audience, Wham Theater hopes to do the professional world premiere of this play. So thanks to Williams College, we now have a set, and we have the beginnings of, costume designs, and we have an artist who we know can cast the heads of actors, and we have some things to begin with. And so this is kind of phase 2 of a longer-term project that everyone has been able to be part of. So being here, what are some things that you now take away and go, okay, here's what I've learned from this production, and here's what I know we have to do for the next one?
I don't know how much specifics I can get into at this point because I am processing things and I have notes, but I am, one of the things I loved about this process was that this wasn't an end point. Often when you're doing the development of new work, you'll get one little workshop here and that's the end of it and it doesn't go any further. And you'll get another reading over here and then it ends and there's nothing further. But what I love about this is that I can take what we've learned and get it into the next draft, which is already, I have scribbles all over it. There's all sorts of stuff happening. And I'm also looking further down the line to publication because my publisher in Canada is very interested in this play and wants to have it published, but we don't want to have it published until we're sure that we've got the version that we want to have on the page because that's the one that goes out into the world. So that's what all of these guys are helping to birth, is what that is going to be. And I'm so incredibly grateful to Kristen and all of these actors and the crew and the college for this opportunity because there's nothing really that can match it. It's great.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions about the process for the actors or the playwright that they're wondering? Yes, I think there's one here.
All in all, and I love all of you did a great job, and the script I think was fabulous. I can't imagine how you'll make it better, but I'm sure you will. It's already fabulous. But there was a lot of non-verbal stuff coming from the actors. So is that already written into the script, or you made it up?
So the question is that in the script there's a lot of non-verbal action, and she's wondering if Trina, if that's already in the script or if we made it up in our production.
Yes, it's already in the script to some extent. I've had a chance to do some staged readings to work some of this out. It's always been important to me that the world had context. So it's not just your principal 4 or 5 characters. It doesn't make any sense without an idea of the expanse of the world and what is actually happening within the context of Paris. And so a lot of it is written in the script, but they really took it and made it their own. So they've come up with new ideas as part of this process, some of which I'm going to steal, by the way. And so it's become really whole here. It started with some scratches and some ideas, but they've certainly developed that.
And we spent a lot of time thinking about the crowd and the people, and Harriet was part of that process. Do you want to speak a little bit about developing the mob and how that was challenging but ultimately successful?
Okay, cool. Right. So I joined the mob for the second act, and it's really about kind of just trusting your fellow actors. The fact is, you all have to be really in sync to do some of the shadow work, or like when they're pushing me on stairs, to like trust them that they're going to be there for you, and if there are any hiccups, they're going to kind of take care of it. So as far as like working with the other actors, it really just becomes getting comfortable with them. And then the mob mentality was a lot of kind of just like trying things out and like doing a lot of movement work and like what's it like to be in a crowd. Like we've all been at concerts and everything where people are pushing and shoving, and that was really kind of the energy that we had to have, even though there's only 5 of us on stage. We had to make it really seem bigger. So with us being comfortable like that, it was easy for us to get to a point where it actually felt like it was frantic and there was a lot of energy going on.
And I saw a few more hands. Yes.
I'm just curious, maybe the dramaturg could also talk about this. Some of the visuals that you threw into your stew pot, like some of the research visuals. I know we don't have the scenic designer here, maybe Deb is here now, but I'm curious, like what some of the inspiration images were.
So the question is, what were the visuals, the creative inspirations that we used as visuals? And Russell, do you want to address that a little bit? Russell Macklin is a dramaturg for the show. And while he's coming up, the image of Marat, that our actor Liam with the feather and the letter over the bench, that's an actual image that exists. It's a very famous painting that exists, and so we were trying our version to try to recreate that.
To speak to some of the imagery that's gone into the show, Trina, I'm sure if you asked her, would say that shadow and light are very important to the show. That's kind of this central image that's was, I know, driving your process and also drove a lot of the design decisions that were going into this. So a lot of the designers were looking at ways to create crowds through layering different light, and that was actually done, I think, really effectively with the flag when they were moving around through the flags. There was a lot of research there. As far as historical stuff goes, there was the salon was very popular. In France, it was a piece of popular culture, so there's a lot of cartoons that were made about it. There's a lot of newspaper images that we had. The switching around of the heads came from a cartoon that was made at the time. Trina, I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
Just did.
Okay, cool. And then also the image of Marat that we had in the bathtub, as well as other images. There's a lot of famous paintings from that time that we used as kind of an inspiration to figure out what the emotional intensity and energy of the revolution was. So that was what a lot of the visual research came from.
We were lucky to rehearse in here, so we had a lot of pictures on the walls. A lot of the characters are historical, so you could see what they actually looked like. And our lighting designer had brought in various pictures of playing a lot with shadow and light from different theater styles and past theater practitioners, and how we might be able to use that in our production. And Russell found that great map of France at the time. And we also had a professor from the French department who's currently writing a book about theater during the French Revolution. And she came and she shared some information with me prior to the process, and then she came in and spoke with everybody else. I think I saw another hand. Was there another question that somebody had? Yes?
Well, yeah, it was sort of answered, because I was very interested in the movements of the set, and I was just curious how much of that was written in and how much of it was dated in some of the other people as well. But it sounds like a lot of it was probably already written in.
Yeah, the question was about the movement of the set and how much of that was written in, and the mob and the people and having the crowd and knowing that danger was present outside and inside was safe and going outside was dangerous, that was in the script. And the lines that the mob say, open up or we'll burn your house down, that's all in the script. But how to create, it's 25 scenes taking place in lots of different locations, and coming up with how to create that was through design conversations and figuring out how we could turn this space into a wax salon that could transform into lots of different spaces. And we all got really excited about the idea of having minimal set pieces that could become different locations and different things at the same time. And it was a lot of work. We spent, even today we had a brakes rehearsal. When do the brakes get locked? When do the brakes get unlocked? So there's a lot of timing that went into that. There was a hand in the back.
I thought your use of sound was very, very effective in changing, and I felt it. It was sometimes a slap in the face. It was terror one moment, and then your people of the mob, when they came in, they didn't say a word. They were silent. And so it was that juxtaposition of real sound and then people coming in to get you saying nothing was, I thought, very, very effective. And it frightened me. And I really felt the emotion.
So she was sharing how she felt frightened by the use of sound and us playing with sound and silence. And the sound designer's wife is here, so I'm sure she'll pass on the message to our sound designer. Thank you for saying that. We're excited about taking that even further as this journey continues. And there was a hand over here. Yes.
So clearly you were dealing with the relationships of these people, but then there's the story of the French Revolution, and I was wondering, to what extent you felt you needed to tell the story of the French Revolution, and to what extent you assumed people already knew about it.
So the question is about how much did Trina feel she had to tell the story of the French Revolution, and how much did she assume people might know about it?
And this sort of, I've written quite a number of historical plays, and it becomes, you need to be very judicious, because this play isn't about the French Revolution. It's about a woman who becomes an artist who learns how to deliver a message and then uses that for her own purposes. But she's in the context of this crazy, twisty time. So what I try to do is give enough information about the French Revolution to give context for the story and what's driving some of the action. But I don't assume, or I hope I don't assume, any prior knowledge. There are some things that some people will pick up on. The painting of Marat, many people are very familiar with that, and names like Jacques-Louis David. But you don't need to know that to follow the story. And that's sort of what I'm attempting to do. And I'm very careful, and I have been with my dramaturgs I've been working with on the play over time, to look at including only what is necessary. So I've been very careful about trying to pull out, and that's actually one of the things we did as part of this process, as we pulled some more of it out, because it really wasn't necessary to tell the story. So we're trying to clarify and get to the heart of what the story is. Yeah.
Maybe a couple of the actors can talk about what it was like to have like a couple of scenes slashed out on Monday, knowing that you were opening on Thursday.
Sure. So there was a scene, scene 4, which you didn't see because it no longer exists on this stage. But it certainly existed in rehearsal for several hours. And it was actually, I think, my audition monologue was from that scene. And I never got to do it for you guys. But it was a scene all about the mob coming to my salon to claim the head of the finance minister, Necker. What's his first name? Was that his first name? Jacques Necker? Okay, the finance minister. And that scene was cut, and it was, we sort of stitched the end of the previous scene to the next scene, and we hope it worked. You can't even tell. But because we no longer mention Necker, like explicitly, there were some ripple effects. So some of my lines later on where I specifically say Necker had to be changed to just finance minister. That's part of balancing the prior knowledge. And then later I talk about it was going to be the head of the finance minister, but that never happened, so now it was the head of the governor of the Bastille. Things to keep track of.
And it was actually Omar who noticed all the things that had to be updated. So, like, kudos to the actor for, yeah, exactly. Paige, do you want to speak about the journey of, and she used to have heads in her lap, and then all of a sudden she didn't. So, a couple of the things you had to overcome this week to your brilliant performance.
Yeah, so I guess since Omar spoke to the taking out of the scene, I'll speak about those big monologues that I do that are very, very challenging. Trina's written some really poetic, really beautiful stuff, and so I worked with Kristen a lot on sort of finding the emotion behind those. But a big thing in those monologues was that I sat there with an actual head in my lap that, you know, was given to me by the mob. And so that was a really big sort of point of access for me as an actor, to be able to look down and visualize this person, especially when it's the Princess de Lamballe, my best friend over there. But a couple days ago, right? It wasn't a couple days ago, we took that out. And so I had to, you know, change what that point of focus was. So I definitely found that to be a challenge. But what was funny was that I think the monologues turned out better after we took the heads out. So, you know, that we played a lot, especially recently, with the connection between Marie and the audience. And, you know, Kristen and Trina have been giving me notes about making sure that I'm looking at you guys a lot, that you're with me, you're with me, you're with me. And so I think in those couple of instances, taking away the heads allowed me to connect with you all more and really get that message across.
And Harold, I know we have to close up shortly, but Harold, can you talk about the challenges of how much time we spent in tech on your moment of death, and how many times that changed for you?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, yeah, so that's just a really long scene. And so trying to tech, you know, getting all the timing right between where the mob is moving. Ultimately, it's a...
The stage manager has like 50 cues.
I'm sure Jenny could talk way better than I can about this. I'm just the figure that stands on the stage and is told to move places, and then moves places and says stuff. and then walks off the stage. But Jenny's the one who really is doing all the action and saying everything into the mic and making sure her entire team is knows what they're doing and moving that flag. We had a sagging flag at one point too, as I turned around, which was cut for various reasons as well, similar to, I guess, the last week of transitory objectives. But ultimately, I do think Jenny could probably talk a lot better about this than I could.
Suddenly, we had tested, and then there were a lot of chefs, and so Harold got to notes from our fight director. He was one of our bona fide chefs, so it was a fair note, but he didn't realize the tech that went around it. And so I went to call it, and then Harold was suddenly going to his knees very, very slowly.
The fact, like Harold's hand move changed about 16 times in terms of the timing. Is there any final questions from the audience before we wrap up? Yeah.
Something about the character development for Marie. So in the program notes and then again right at the end, you get this sense that the character is not entirely an innocent caught up in terrible events, right? But you only get a little hint of that strongly right at the end. Could you say a little more about that?
So the comment is about how innocent is Marie and how we get a little hint of it, and if Trina could expand on that choice.
Well, there's definitely a wink. There's definitely a wink in the play. And when she's in her black bonnet and dress, Marie is intended to be near the end of her life. So she has then gathered all of these things together to tell her own story. And in doing so, she is embellishing, moving it around a little bit, making tweaks here and there to make it what she would like you to see. Essentially, she's making herself the hero of her own story. It does, yes.
And that applies retrospectively, yeah. So thank you very much. There's one more night, so if you'd like to let your family and friends know, and keep your ears out for the professional world premiere. And some of these students are graduating and going into the field, so who knows, they may end up here. I'd like to give a shout out to our assistant stage manager, Tara, who's listening in the house, who is like... And we have one of our other ASM who also takes care of our props, Ramona, who's here as well. So we thank her. And I think that's everybody in the house who's part of the show. So thank you so much for coming. Congratulations to the actors, and have a great night.